And thank you very much for making time with me today on the Marketplace. Now, Ghana and the World Bank have signed an agreement that will pave way for the disbursement of about $570 million for some economic initiatives in the country. The partly loan and partly grant facility will go into 4 main projects aimed at boosting Ghana's growth and supporting the private sector. In a short ceremony to sign the agreement, Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta urged the World Bank to avoid delays in delivering the projects, especially in an election year.
Engagement with the World Bank, which leads to the core of our development, is what has made them such special partners with us going forward. So these projects are sort of multi-sectorial, and it leads to the whole issue of inclusiveness and transformation, which has been, in my view, the character of our government since we came into office. How do you accelerate development but ensure that you leave no one behind? And this is where we talk about the preferential option for the poor, and where the centrality of education is important, so that there's a sense of social mobility for all, and citizenhood, is enhanced. But we cannot do that without ensuring that wealth creation, which is why my colleague Minister Alan is here, so that we have sustainability in what we do. But the buy-in was necessary, which means that health and education has to be put in place. And in that, we're talking about the dignity of people, is where the sanitation and water resources also become key elements of what we do. Because the whole issue of protecting the public purse, people feeling a part of the nation, and therefore protecting the future is important. And that's why we have this multi-sectorial approach at what we are doing. I feel quite strongly that we have proven to Ghanaians that this is a government that is inclusive, because if you look at the transformation, the flagship projects between education, 1D, 1F, it's all leading to a certain decentralization, so that wherever you are, you can participate in the growth of the country and the transformation that we seek. The question then becomes sustainability, and that's where World Bank support and other means of domestic mobilization are going to be really important for us to move forward. So it's an exciting morning for us. We are pleased about that. The year has just started. This is the 17th day. And I think this year is going to move a lot faster than we even think. And I think one thing that at least we have noticed historically is that usually the development partners begin to get into a very slow mode of implementation in election time. And we want to signal that we do want to work quickly and effectively and efficiently, and that the good work that we are doing should really not be compromised, issues of election year, etc. Because we do have to continue the momentum to ensure that things move the way we want. The citizenry is expectant, always wants more than we can deliver, but that's fine. But then when DPs start go slow approach in election year, it really hurts, and then you have to, crank up the valves again when after victory to start all over again.
Well, so the 4 key projects are the Greater Accra Resilient and Flood Prevention Project, Economic Growth Policy, projects on forest investment, and accountability in learning initiatives. Now, away from that, Ghana has taken the lead in the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Agreement with the introduction of initiatives locally that will enhance trading with other countries. To this end, the Minister of Trade and Industry, Alan Kwadwo-Kyerematen, has called on business owners in the country to collaborate with government on many of the policies to ensure that Ghana gets the maximum benefit. Alan Kyerematen was speaking at the AB and David Crystal Ball Africa in Accra.
call by the minister follows a series of concerns raised by some members of the business community over Ghana's readiness to implement the most ambitious trade deal. With about 6 months to commence official trade in another agreement, Ghana has put in place several industrial policies and programs that will boost the country's competitiveness on the continent. Speaking at the AB and David Cristobal conference with a focus on African continental free trade agreements and business without borders, Alan Tremanting said a lot is being done by government to achieve the full benefits.
There's also a cluster on trade finance and development finance. So 7 clusters. Now these 7 clusters, for me, constitute the basis for the development of a national strategy which will help you to implement the CFTA and become part of it. And so in Ghana, we have already taken the lead, not just because we are honored to be the Secretariat for the CFTA. It's also because we believe in this. And we believe that if you introduce policy measures and institutional structures that will allow you to produce and trade, then you can be part of this. So in Ghana, our president has established an interministerial facilitation team at the highest level of executive authority to provide oversight and direction for the CFTA.
Director of the Department of Trade and Industry for the African Union, Hassan Hussein, has promised that efforts are being made to ensure that financial challenges are addressed for African businesses.
Similarly, when it comes to the Pan-African payments and settlement system, which is being developed by the African Export and Import African Bank, the plan is to conduct regional workshops on the instruments so that traders are familiar with these innovative tools that will help address one of the main constraints affecting intra-African trade, which is the existence of several currencies across Africa.
The Crystal Ball is an annual gathering of business executives and industrial sector players to protect the business environment for the year.
Meanwhile, the African Civil Aviation Commission says getting nations to fully implement liberalized skies under the single African air transport market is crucial for the success of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. According to the Commission, the free movement of airlines on the continent will facilitate trade activity and easy movement of persons. Sheila Tamaklo reports.
Now, about 30 African countries have signed up onto the single African air transport market, representing over 80% of the existing aviation market in Africa. Under the single air transport market, African nations are expected to reduce restrictions in air transport to promote intra-regional connectivity between the capital cities of Africa. Speaking to Joy Business, the Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, says African nations fully implementing the single African air transport market will be relevant to the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
In order to have a full implementation of the CFTA, we need to have the single air transport market. We are talking about perishable items, free movement of goods, and we are talking about a common market. In order to have a common market, we need to have a common air transport services as well. We need connectivity. We need better frequency of flights connecting each states. Therefore, they complement each other. The success of the CFTA will contribute to the SATM. The SATM, then when it covers the whole continent and fully implemented, it will complement that of the CFTA.
The Secretary General further lauded Ghana's efforts in ensuring full implementation of the open skies policy of the single African air transport market.
I haven't received any complaint on Ghana on the implementation of all the provisions of the YD. I can see that there are infrastructure developments taking place in Accra. There are system developments. Now we are also looking on the capacity building programs. Further to the discussion I had with His Excellency, the Minister of Aviation, there are other structural changes and which to ensure that there is a sustainable development of air transport and also sustainability of safety, security, environment considerations while looking into full compliance to IQ standards.
For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
This is live on the marketplace. Let's turn our attention now to telecommunications sector. Now, mobile operator MTN Ghana says it is migrating data subscribers onto a different lines to help manage challenges with its main undersea subsea cable. The mobile operator yesterday had its data services disrupted due to cut in subsea cables of its lines in London and Portugal. Corporate Services Executive Samuel Cranting says they are committed to restoring full services to their subscribers.
Realize that the data service are not completely off. The challenge is intermittent because we rely on other cable systems like the ACE cable system, main 1 and SAT3 as well. But then the wax cable carries most of the traffic, and the impact on this cable, which was the high ultra capacity cable, has been quite sharp. But then you would realize that the services are slowly coming up because the teams are working very hard to restore capacity on that particular cable, and we're rerouting more traffic through the ACE system and other cable systems.
Well, so we want to explore this further, and join me in studio to take it up is Joy News, I beg your pardon, Joy FM's host of Geek Squad, Kobe Spikey in Kuma. Kobe, welcome to the marketplace.
Thank you very much.
Now, in times like these, what backup systems do network operators put in place to offset disruptions in their services?
So, like for now, they're using undersea cables. They could actually use satellite connection, and then that could be like a redundancy. Albeit not as fast as the fiber, it could basically prevent people from going through what they're going through now and then losing clients too in the process.
And do we know whether MTN and other operators here in the country have such backup systems?
Well, we can't say for sure. And if they did have, I'm sure that they would have put that in place, and then there wouldn't have been this downtime over this long period.
Now, I believe this whole thing goes beyond just MTN and impacts on businesses.
Yes.
Could you tell us some of the impact on businesses as we speak?
Well, a lot of businesses would really suffer because most connections rely on the internet. For instance, banks have to connect to each other branches over the internet, and all their networks are based on this internet connectivity. So when there's that downtime, there's a difficulty in communicating between branches. And if you're a business that relies on cloud services, you'll be suffering some downtime. If your systems or your applications are hosted on the cloud, you can't access them. So that's a whole lot of revenue people will be losing. They wouldn't be able to serve clients. They wouldn't be able to even do your regular backups. Because imagine, let's say today you're done with your transactions for the day. You have to back up so later you can get your files. You're unable to back up. And then something happens coincidentally and you lose all that data. That could cost you a whole lot of money. And then your clients also trying to access your services. Let's say if your service is also cloud-based and your clients use a certain network and they're trying to access it, they also have troubles. And because the communication didn't come early, a lot of people thought the problem was with their devices. And with such a problem, you find people toying around with their devices doing so when even the system is restored and their settings are not restored to how it actually would work, they still don't have connectivity.
Now, in this particular instance, we're learning that the subsea cables were having affected.
Yes.
Now, what would have caused, or what causes some of these things underground?
Well, there's saying that it was a submarine that cut it. A lot of things, I mean, it's nature. It's a cable running under the water, so a lot of things could have caused it. Even some, earthquakes and earth tremors under sea could even cause something to happen to this. But they said it was a submarine that hits the cable and then ruptured it, and that caused it to go down.
Now, should this happen to calls as well? What should people be doing? Subscribers, I mean, can they port their numbers at this time to make use of?
I heard a lot of people ported yesterday. I heard people were porting because they felt that they didn't know what the problem was and they wanted their systems to work, so they were porting. Usually what happens is, what I would think that a service provider would do is quickly put out information to let people know what the problem is so they don't react. That's what I would think that they would do. But I got information towards the end of the day Because I even had an MTN SIM card, because in my area, MTN is way better than most of the other networks. So I got an MTN SIM card, and it wasn't working. And I thought, oh, so I was, you know, I was not right about MTN working. So I took out the MTN SIM and went back to my regular network. So yeah, the communication should come way earlier.
Do you suspect that it will take much longer than this time?
Well, this is a business that it thrives on these connections, people using them. So as much as possible, I'm sure they would want it to come back early as possible so they can retain their customers. Otherwise, that's a huge loss for MTN. Some time ago, we had, you know, we heard that they lost millions of cedis, about 30 million Ghana cedis, because of fiber cuts same way. So you don't want them losing money.
Are all other networks also on the fiber cut system?
No, currently it's only MTN that's suffering from this fiber cut. Most of these networks, Glo, Vodafone, they all have their own fibers. They all have their fiber cable coming in under the sea. So everyone and who their provider is. If your networks share the same provider and then they suffer that cut, you also suffer this. We don't know if all of them use the same fiber from the same source. If that was the case, then we'd experience it across. If your network uses the same fiber and you're not suffering it, then it means that probably they had a failover, a redundancy.
All right, thank you very much, Kobe, for that update. Kobe Spike Nkrumah is host of G Squad. Away from this, the Finance Ministry has constituted an emergency FX development committee to offer solutions to the fall of the cedi against some major trading currencies. Even though the cedi had appreciated marginally in the month of January, there are concerns it may plunge again, especially as the country nears the elections period. There's more in this report.
Government has instituted an FX development committee as part of crucial efforts to regulate the supply and demand of forex in the country. This follows an order from the President to the Finance Minister to investigate the structural causes for the depreciation of the cedi and to propose measures to address the situation. Addressing the media upon the constitution of the committee, Deputy Finance Minister Charles Eduboahen explained that the move further complements efforts by government to stabilize the cedi.
Foreign exchange volatility remains a major concern for government as it impacts real output growth and also increases price inflation. As has empirically been established, the seasonal fall in the value of the cedi can be explained by external headwinds and cyclical domestic demand for forex by corporates and individuals for trade settlements in recent times, increased demand by the energy sector actors as well. The other factor exacerbating the situation relates to currency market speculation. Given the debilitating impact of the cedi depreciation on the Ghanaian economy, the government has established a Foreign Exchange Developments Committee to offer policy alternatives to address this challenge.
Head of Payment Systems at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Seto Medical, further expressed the central bank's move to automate payment systems to stabilize the cedi.
Our regional initiatives also, we have also initiated actions, for example, the Pan-Africa Payment and Settlement System, PASS, led by Afrexim Bank, to ensure an efficient payment system.
Meanwhile, President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, lamented the disconnect regarding Ghana's export earnings as well as import expenditure. He is confident the committee will go a long way to deal with this issue.
We are not satisfied the fact that we bring in so many containers, offload them, and when they are leaving the shores of Ghana, they are virtually empty, going back. We want to find a solution to fill them by also exporting.
Highlighting the importance of the agric sector in stabilizing the currency, the agric minister, Dr. Efria Kotose, expressed moves to double the production of major cash crops in the country, as well as boost rice and poultry production, which constitutes close to $2 billion on a yearly basis.
Meanwhile, central bank governors in West Africa have deferred the position on the single currency introduction and asked their heads of state to take a final decision. This was one of recommendations captured in the communique issued after a 3-day emergency meeting. The gathering brought together finance ministers and central bank governors in the region. According to the governors, this emergency meeting would deal with issues and other related matters. They question the approach of French-speaking countries to rename the French franc as the echo and fully adopt it this year. Sources say behind the scenes, the governors say they are not ready for the echo's introduction this year. Joining me is George Biafei, who has been following up on this with more details. George, so how did we get here in the first place?
I mean, since 2000, the West African Monetary Zone, that is the English-speaking countries, have taken several measures aimed at introducing the single currency, that is the eco. The plan was to concentrate this single common currency for the English-speaking countries in the West African region, because initially they were having problems with the French-speaking countries, and the plan was that why don't we go ahead with those who are within the English-speaking countries? Let's go ahead with that, and then when the others are ready, then they come and join. So there have been several that we can talk about the convergence criteria, where there are certain primary and secondary requirements that they're supposed to meet. One of them has to do with single currency, single inflation rate. You're talking about not spending more than a certain percentage of your revenue in the new year or coming year and all those things. And every country was supposed to meet that criteria, and then they go ahead and introduce the currency. They realized that some of the countries were struggling, like Ghana, Nigeria, and so they came back and also agreed that, okay, why don't we allow countries that meet these requirements go ahead and start? I'm going to talk about Togo, Benin, and all the rest. But again, the concern here is that, listen, should we allow these countries to start? Which country is going to use their international reserves to back this currency? And so those things have been back and forth, and that is why we are here. And then they were proposing that it should start 2020. But on this particular meeting, you realize that there were concerns. There were deep-rooted concerns from the English-speaking countries. They didn't understand why the French country or the French-speaking countries, they had to go ahead and say that they are changing the French franc to eco and adopting it. They believe that is not fair. There is a roadmap. There are certain preconditions that should be in place before you should introduce this currency. And if those things are not in place, they don't think that it will be fair, it's right to go ahead and say that this year they are going to roll out the single common currency, the eco.
And they suspect that this division could stall the whole process.
I think the major challenge has been within the Franco-Anglo challenge, and as long as we will not be able to address that, it looks like it might last a little bit longer. From the meetings yesterday, the governors were raising issues about even who is going to use their reserves to back the currency. Which country is going to host or house the West African Central Bank? And it's between Ghana and Nigeria. Ghana believes that, okay, if Nigeria has the ECOWAS Secretariat, then it might be right for us to also have the West African Central Bank. So all these things have not been ironed out, and they don't think that it is prudent for the political decision to go ahead and say they're introducing it this year. This meeting was supposed to roll out a roadmap in terms of introducing this currency. It looks like they failed to do that, and they're saying that the heads of state should take a decision on that. In terms of economy-wise, monetary-wise, the condition that should be precedent for introducing this currency. Remember, I said it here a week ago. It doesn't look possible, and it looks like it will not happen this year.
All right. Thank you very much, George Biafei, with his expose on the communique issued by West African Central Bank governors on the eco. And that's it for the marketplace today. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Biafei, have a good afternoon.